Ever wanted to learn how to make one of these really fun puffy flower granny squares? Well, stay tuned. We're going to learn. This is what I call the pretty puffy square, and it's going to be a flower with a granny square background. So we're still working on the granny squares. The reason that I chose this one is that we're using a, some people call it a popcorn stitch, or some people call it a bobble stitch. It's a real fun stitch to learn and to try, and you can use it in a lot of different applications. This was one of the squares that I used in my Happy Scrappy Cow. As I said, I did 4 squares, and this was one of the squares, and I thought it was really nice with a good contrast of colors. So we're going to start, again, I like to do the magic circle to start with, just because it tightens up nicely. So I'm going to go ahead and place this in my yarn ball so it doesn't run all over the place. So to start this off, we're going to do the magic square, or sorry, the magic circle. And again, you're going to take the tail of the yarn, and I'm going to hold it over my first 2 fingers, holding it down with my thumb, crossing it so that the cross goes over the top. Taking my needle, I go under the first strand, coming down through the second, and then pulling through. Now I let go and I do chain 1 to hold it in place. And remember, with the magic circle, you want to make sure that you are crocheting your stitches over those 2 strands. So from here, I'm going to do just 6 single crochets. I'm going to go into the circle, yarn over, pull through. My 2 strands are on the crochet hook, pulling through. I'm going to do that 4 more times. So I yarn over, pull through, and then I pull through again with the 2 strands. Yarn over and pull through, and come over. So now I have 3. You can see 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to do 2 more. So I yarn over. This is not a double crochet. It's just a basic single crochet, yarn over, pull through, and I'm going to yarn over and pull through. And then just go ahead and check. You can see the stitches on the spine. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now I know I'm done. I'm going to take the tail and I pull on the tail to close up the loop. See how fun that is? Then I'm just going to slip stitch into that first single crochet. Pull through, and there we go. Now from here, I'm going to keep with this yarn because I'm going to start my bobble stitches in this same color. I'm going to start with because I'm doing a double crochet, I'm going to chain 3, which is going to replicate that first double crochet. And then I'm going to go into this first single crochet stitch. And I'm going to do a total of 5 in here. So right now I'm going to do 4 because this one already represents the first one. Yarn over, go into that stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over once and pull through, and yarn over twice and pull through. Now I have the 2 double crochets. I'm going to do 3 more right into that same stitch. This is the bobble stitch. There's 3. Here's 4. And here is 5. And you can count them. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And you can see across the spine, if you just want to be sure, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then there's the 5 on the end. Now, to do this bobble stitch, you pull your crochet hook out of that first hook, or out of the first loop. You're going to go to the very back, okay? And you're going to grab a hold of that loop that you just ended, and then we're just going to yarn over and pull all the way through. And then to finish it off, we do a chain 1. That is our bobble stitch. Let's go ahead and do the same thing in the next single crochet. So we yarn over, we go through, and we double crochet here. We're going to do 5, so there's 1, here's 2, 3, 4, and here's 5. Okay, so And again, you have the 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I'm going to go into that last stitch, grab a hold of that last loop, yarn over, pull through all the way, and then give myself a chain. So now you can see so basically what we're doing is we're just closing it down and you get this really nice little bobble stitch. So this is basically how we're going to create our flower for the center of this puffy square. Now I'm going into my next, again, 5 double crochets. This is really a beginner square. It's a little bit maybe tricky in the beginning if you don't know the bobble stitch. But if you've never tried the bobble stitch, give it a try because it's a super fun stitch. You get some really unique design patterns out of it, and it looks a lot more complicated than it really is. So again, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Pull the hook out, find that stitch so it's right there. Come in, grab a hold of that stitch, that first where you just left off, and pull through. And then we go chain 1 to cinch it up. Okay, so I'll go through these with you. So there's 4, we'll do 1 more. And you can make these as big or as small as you want, but this is a good size for what I'm doing. We just pull it all the way through. It's also a very forgiving stitch. Okay, and you can see how this flower is starting to emerge. Isn't it adorable? Okay, we're going to go into here. And don't worry if the yarn, that you're working with kind of comes over the flower because, believe it or not, it's going to right itself and it'll pull itself behind the flower, or behind the petals, rather. So there we have 4. We're going to do 1 more. Oops, there we go. We're going to come and find that last stitch and then go into that first stitch. Come all the way across. There we go. Chain 1. Last one is right here. So we're going to go in and do that one quickly. This is one of my favorite stitches because it's so simple and yet it has such a pretty look to it, and it looks so much more complicated than it is. So if you want to amaze your friends and family, you want to learn this stitch. There we go. And here's our last one. So we're going to find that last stitch over here, and we're going to come into the front, yarn over, pull through, chain 1. So now we've got our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 petals. And then what we're going to do is you're just going to kind of slip stitch into the back, and it's kind of it's not an exact science, but we're just going to kind of go in like so. Okay. And we're going to go ahead and cut our yarn, moving on to the next color. Okay, so now we're moving. Technically, this is the 3rd row of our pretty puffy square. This one here was the first. So the magic circle was our first row, and then the bobble stitches here was our 2nd row. And now we're going to go into our 3rd row, and this is where it gets really fun. So now if you remember, we did that chain 1 after we finished the flower petal, and it's this chain right here. Notice how when the petal kind of puffs, that chain 1 stitch kind of moves to the back, and this is where we're going to put our row 3. So we're going to go into that stitch right there. I'm going to grab a hold of my yarn, and we're going to go ahead and pull through. Now this is where it's going to get a little bit fun. We're going to do 2 sets of 4 double crochets into the back here. So here's my first, right into the back. And I have my tail right there, so we can kind of get rid of that. We're going to go in 1 and 2. You think it might get a little bit crowded, but it really doesn't. But because we're doing 2 sets, we're only going to do 4 of the double crochet. So let's do another one. And we're going to do the same as we did. So we're going to hold that out there. I'm going to find that first stitch, which is right here. I'm going to grab that last one there and I'm going to pull it through. I'm going to chain 1 and I'm going to do another set of 4 double crochets right here into that same stitch. So here we've got 4 double crochets going into the last stitch and into the first, yarning over, pulling it through, and chaining and 1. And again, we're going to go and do the same thing. And that yarn just naturally falls behind the petals from the row 2. So there's 3. We're going to do 1 more. And we're going to go into the back there. Remember your chain 1, that's what closes off your petal and it allows it to kind of get that, the bobble look, the bubbled up look. Find that stitch, go into the back. Chain 1. All right, so now you can start to see how these bubble stitches are really coming up and you can kind of, mess around with them a little bit to give them some zhuzh, if you will. Again, you're going to find that single stitch in the back of your flower. Remembering that we're doing 2 sets of 4 double crochets in each single stitch, or chain 1 if you will. And there's 3, so we're going to do 1 more. So there it is there and there. You can see how it's starting to grow. Yarn over, find that single stitch. There's your 4. The retention isn't like really important because it's going to kind of curl under, but just in case you want to try to keep it as average or as even as possible in all your stitches. So again, here's our next little petal. So now you can see we've got the 2. We're going to yarn over into these next 2 spots, minding your little ends. That's why I said sometimes it's good to, weave them in as you go. Now, if you can see, I'm kind of holding that little tail here in place. I'm going to try to weave that in as I go. It makes it just a little bit easier. So you don't have all these crazy stitches or loose ends. So there's your 4. Into the back and into the front, coming through, yarn over, pull up. Next 4. And like I said, the yarn naturally just pulls itself behind, which is really helpful. So there's your 4. They're very easy to count, 1, 2, 3, and 4, or you can see the stitches across the top. Oh, sorry, there's 3 there. Hold on. We need to do 1 more. There we go. Now, find that stitch, move into the front one, yarn over, pull through, chain 1. And this is our last grouping here. And can you guess what we're going to do in the next row? I bet you can. There's my 4 stitches. Pull through. Let's see, and there's 4. Okay. Going into the back and into that. Good. All right. Now, I chained 1, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and do that slip stitch. And if you can see this one, it kind of tucked itself in. So all I'm doing is I'm just going to pop out those. You see how this one's a little bit tucked in? So just sort of stick your finger in the back of it, just pop it out a little bit. Okay. And then from here, I'm going to just do a slip stitch into the back of that first double crochet. See, isn't that adorable? We're going to cut our yarn and we're going to move on to the next color. All right, so now we're moving into turquoise. And don't worry, if you see how it just looks a little bit puffy, don't worry about that, because as we work that square, it's going to flatten itself out. But here's all my little ends. You can either weave them in or weave them along as you go. So again, to start this one, I'm going to move into any chain space. So I can go in here. Actually, I'm going to go in here because I'm going to try to weave this extra little strand in as I go. So I'm going to go right in there. Bringing my yarn through. Oops, let's try that again. Like I said, I like to weave in my tails as I go, just because when I'm done with the project, I'm pretty done with it. I don't want to have to go back and have to weave in all the ends. Now this one's going to get a little bit more crowded, but it's okay because we know what we're doing. We're going to do 2 sets of 4 double crochets, just like we did here in each one of these chain spaces. Okay. So I'm not going to chain up. I'm just going to do a regular double crochet. And I'm going to yarn over and yarn over. Now, I know it looks like I've got more strands here. That's only because I'm weaving in this extra little piece here. So remember, 4 double crochets in each chain space. Good, there you go. Again, we're just going to reach around, grab a hold of that hole, or of that first stitch rather, which is right there. Grab a hold of the other one, bring it through, and chain 1. Now again, it's going to look a little crowded, but it's okay. There's 2. All will be revealed. 3. There's 4. Pull it out. Find your beginner. Reaching in. I hope you're doing this with me. Chaining 1 and then moving into the next. So I'm going to keep going on and I'm going to meet you all the way back at the end. Okay, so now we're back because we've added on a lot of the little puffs. And again, I just kind of fluff them up with my fingers. All right, so we started out with 6 in the first row, and then we've got 12 in the second row, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and 12. So that means we're going to have twice as many, or 24, in that third row. So it's getting a little bit, but you can see it's starting to flatten out really nicely. Now what I'm going to do here is you just chain 1, which I did as you always do, and then we just move into this stitch here. I've got a little extra yarn there, and pulling it nice and tight so we close up that circle, that flower, and then we're good. Let's go ahead and cut this. Now we're going to move into the actual square of our puffy square. And again, just make sure you pull it nice and tight so that you don't have any gaps. Now from here, we're going to actually start to build a square around this. I'm going to grab, I'll grab this color. Maybe I'll grab this color. I'm going to grab this color. Okay. I like to pull out of the center. It drives me bonkers when the yarn is rolling all over the place. Now from here, we're going to go into any one of those chain one spaces in between the two. So we've got the two sets here, and I've got the two sets right here. So I'm going to go into this space here. This is going to be one of my corners, and it's very simple, but this is probably one of the trickiest parts, if you will. So I go through, I just pull the yarn through. Now I'm going to do a half double crochet and then a double crochet. So a half double crochet, I yarn over, I go into that space, I pull through. So don't mind this little X piece there. So I've got the 3 strands on my hook and I pull all the way through. Now the next stitch that I'm going to make here, this is only making this square. I'm going to yarn over, I'm going to do a double crochet. Yarn over, come through. I'm going to hold this little lavender piece down and I'm going to do a double crochet here. That's 1/2 of my square. I'm going to chain 2, just like a normal square. I'm going to do a double crochet and then I'm going to do a half double crochet. And I'm going to pull all the way through. So that's one of my squares, all right? So I have 2 half double crochets on the outside, 2 double crochets on the inside with a chain 2 in between. Now, why do I do it that way? Because we're going to start building this square. And so to build a square out of a circle, where we start getting close, we want to have these stitches shorter up here to start to make that nice flat edge with the square. Then we're going to have another corner over here. And we're going to be going into each stitch above. So here, so I did my corner. Now I'm going to go into this stitch right here. So I'm not technically going into each stitch. That will be in the last row. I'm going to go through and I'm going to put in here 2 double crochets. I'm sorry, 2 half double crochets. Let me explain to you what's happening here besides my yarn is splitting. All right. So again, we've started the corner here. We want to bring a nice edge along here. So as you can see, the circle is closer here, but as you come farther across, it's going to be farther away over here. So I do the 2 double half crochets. Then over here, I'm going to do single crochets because it's, again, the circle is closer. I'm going to do 2 of these into each space, and I'm going to do that 3 times. This is how we're building the pattern to make the square. So in this next set, I do 2 single crochets. And then right here, I'm going to do another 2 single crochets. And from here, now I'm going to start to get back over to this corner. So right here, I'm going to do 2 more half double crochets just like I did over here. So I'm going to yarn over, go right, and it's that space between. Go right here, go in here, all the way through, half double crochet, all the way through. Now you can see how we're starting to build that edge. Now here is where my corner is going to start. So remember, we did the 2 half double crochets here, which means I'm going to start with a half double crochet here. I'm building up and out. So here in the corner, I'm going to do a half double crochet. Sorry, this yarn is splitting. Then I'm going to do a regular double crochet right here, chaining 2 because I'm building my square, and I'm going to repeat that pattern in that same space. So again, the double crochet because I'm going larger into the smaller, or going to a smaller. Now I'm doing a half double crochet, And now I've completed this corner. From here, in this next space, I'm going to do 2 half double crochets. So there's 1, and there's 2, and then once again here, I'm going to repeat what I did here, 3 sets of 2 single crochets in each chain space. So there's 2. Here is the second set of 2 single crochets. And then here is the third set of single crochets. Right? Now I'm getting back over to this corner. So I'm going to do 2 half double crochets right here to start increasing the size to get to that corner. So I've got those 2. Now my next corner is going to be right here. Again, because I ended on a half double crochet here, I'm going to do a half double crochet right in here. My next stitch is going to be a double crochet. I'm going to chain 2. Then from here, I'm going to do that double crochet again. 1 half double crochet there. And then into this next space, we're going to go into this space and we're going to do 2 half double crochet. So you see how the pattern, oops, that's not right. You see how the pattern is starting to emerge. This is how we're building, This is how we're building a square out of a circle. You can do this with really any granny square. So you can start with a circle and then you can turn it into a square. So again, there's my single. I'm going to do 2 single crochets here, 2 single crochets here. I'm going to do another set of 2 single crochets here. Okay, and you can see how the square is starting to evolve. From here, 2 half double crochets right in here, preparing for that next corner, which is going to be right in here. So here we do a half double crochet, a double crochet, chain 2, a double crochet, a half double crochet. There we go. 2 half double crochets right here. Watching out for this little piece here. 2 half double crochets in here. 1 and 2. And then we're going to go in to this space here. It's just a little tricky to find. And we're going to go single crochet, single crochet, oops, 2 single crochets. Good quality yarn goes a long way, doesn't it? Three single crochets here, or third one here rather. Two half double crochets right there. And then we're coming back up into our corner, which we've already started. So we're just going to do 2 half double crochets here. And then we're going to slip stitch into that corner space. All right. Now, I'm not going to cut my yarn because this is this color that I'm going to be ending on. So as you can see, we have made a square out of the circle. Ta-da! Now for the next row, going to go into, now where I want to start is going to be right here, but because my yarn is over here, I'm just going to slip stitch over to that corner space. And by slip stitching, we're just moving the yarn over, but we're not actually making a stitch. So I'm just slip stitching over it. Now I'm where I need to be. Okay, so we do that. If we end a row, sometimes over here, we just want to slip stitch over to get the yarn to where we need to be. From here, I'm going to do a double crochet, because again, I'm starting my corners. Another double crochet, so 2 double crochets, chain 2, another double crochet here, and another one. So always in the corner, you want to repeat that set. You want to have, and that's what gives you that nice corner. And as you can see, the stitches just kind of go up along the sides. And from here, we're going to double crochet into each space. So there's one there, double crochet just across. We're just basically making the border. And this is going to be the last row for this granny square. And we're just going to double crochet all the way across until we get to that corner where we're going to do those 2 double crochets and chain 2 again. And you can see those stitches pretty easily. And it just gives it a really nice border. Very easy to work with. This is the Puffy square. Again, it's a variation of a granny square with a nice flower in the center. So again, granny squares can be so versatile. It doesn't have to be that traditional, just, square. Now, we're back, actually, let's go right here. We're back over to our corner. So we're going to go through that pattern one more time. We're going to go into this space. I'm going to do 2 double crochets, 1, 2, chain 2, and then 2 more double crochets. There we go. And then we're just going to continue going all the way around. Okay, so let's finish up together. All right, I've done all of my corners. And sometimes you just have to kind of work it a little bit, right? Look how pretty this is. Then what you're going to do is you're just going to slip stitch into that last stitch right before the corner and close it up. There you go. And this, now we have, let me get rid of this little bit here. Just tie it away, nice and tidy. Okay, this is our pretty puffy square. Now, again, you can use any kind of yarn you want with this. As you know, we were also making this granny square here. So what I would do is I would probably bring in that orange and then do another row here and then join these together. You can use this to make a whole sweater or a whole blanket or a series of squares. With this one here, you just keep adding the squares. This is the classic granny square, and this is the pretty puffy square. What we learned in this one here is not only learning how to turn a circle into a square, but we also learned how to do our bobble stitch, or some people call it the popcorn stitch, which is so pretty, but as you can see, it's very simple to do. There you go. Congratulations.